20 years ago, I was 16 years old, and I was living in Hayward, Wisconsin, going to high school there, and the local Lumberjack show asked me if I wanted to be a lumberjack. And I said yes, and the rest is history.
Here we go. Whoa! Hey, we got our runner in the pond!
The Lumberjack show that I started at is in Hayward, Wisconsin. Like I said, it's at the home of the Lumberjack World Championships. So the Lumberjack World Championships happens one weekend every year, and it has for over 60 years. And back in the late 70s, I think early 80s, Rob Shear started a Lumberjack show right there at the Lumberjack World Championship site. And it's basically like a mock competition. As you can see here in Ketchikan now, it's just two lumberjacks versus two other lumberjacks, and they go head to head in, a dozen different events, timber sport events. So there's 3 chopping events, there's a couple sawing events, manual sawing events, and then there's a couple chainsaw events. There's speed climbing. That's one of the events that kind of stands alone. It's a climbing event where they race up to the top of the pole and back down. There's log rolling, where there's 2 people on a log in the water, seeing who could last the longest. Boom running, so a plethora of things. It's all events that derived from the old techniques they used to use to log back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. My favorite event is the speed climb. In 2018, I was the 90-foot speed climbing world champion.
But now we are getting into our speed climbing event. This right here, one of the most exciting events in timber sports. Our climbers are going to start with 1 foot on the crash pad. 1 gap is going to be stuck in that tree. They will then climb to the top of the spar pole, tag their rope to the top line, then come all the way back down to the crash pad. Whoever hits that crash pad first is the winner of this event. Now these guys are some of the fastest climbers in the world, so let's give them some encouragement. Dawson Creek, that's your man Cameron Pilgrim. Bruce Mill, you know him, you love him, that's your man Turbo, Tom Lancaster. Cheer him on to the top and all the way back down. Climbers, ready? 1, 2, go! Here we go, all the way to the top. There is the tag, the bell, and that's the win!
The camaraderie in the sport and in lumberjack shows is kind of what made me fall in love with it in the first place. And here, up here in Ketchikan, we actually live in what we call the Jack Shack, and there's 10 guys that work here. All the lumberjacks and the announcer all live in the Jack Shack, and it's a fun time. You get to hang out with your friends, all summer long, and get to do shows with them. So it's a good time. The first time I came to Ketchikan was 2012, and I came here just to do shows for a few weeks. I wasn't even here for full summer, so that was my first taste, was just to come here for the last 3 weeks of the season. And then I've came several times since, of course, and kind of kept getting pulled back to Ketchikan. I'm a bit of a gypsy, but yeah, normally the season ends, in October. So after that, for a few years there, I was going back to Vermont. This last year, I actually just spent the time road tripping around the country and visiting friends and national parks and stuff like that. I went and hiked the Zion in Zion National Park. I did the Narrows there, that was really cool. I did that in December when there wasn't a lot of people. That was a lot of fun. And then me and Pat, the announcer here at the show, we went down to the Redwoods. We drove down the Pacific Coast Highway and then went and camped in the Redwoods. So that was really cool too. Just to name a few things I did. This winter was fun. Like I said, I went to high school in Hayward, Wisconsin, and the winters are a little harsher there. It's a lot colder there and more snow. So here was actually, in my opinion, a mild winter for what I'm used to. But it was a lot of fun. I got to explore in the snow when it did come, and if you get out of town a little bit, you get more snow up by the mountains. So that was a lot of fun. I did some. I chipped away the ice at Harriet Hunt and did some log rolling out there. I got to go sledding down Schoenbar a few times. Yeah, definitely got to hike the access road to Dude Mountain. So that was fun too. In an ideal situation, I feel like you would use some of the off season to maybe do more, gym workout, weightlifting, sprint training, plyometrics, stuff like that, and then and kind of prep yourself for the season. And then closer to the season, you're going to start doing the event training. So that's kind of the struggle with timber sports, is not only do you got to stay in shape, getting strong, getting fast, but then you have to do event training for each event, because they all have their own technique. So closer to the season, you want to start getting into your event training if you've kind of prepped your body prior to is ideal. This is my first winter in Ketchikan, and I needed a way to train. I wanted to keep practicing my events, especially log rolling, and this is what when I bring it out to the lake, I can wear my spiked shoes, my cork shoes, on a bare log. When I do log rolling on the show, it's a liner in the tank, so we have carpet on the log. So we actually roll on tennis shoes, which is, you're still log rolling, but it is a little bit different. So this mimics professional competition more than rolling on a carpet in a lined tank. So that's what spurred the idea to like get this log out here so I can actually roll on a real log, a bare log, I should say, with spiked competitive log rolling shoes. So we use logger corks and actually put them in the bottom of a cleat. We actually grind all the cleats off and put spikes on the shoe. And so this is actually the first time wearing these, so these are actually really sharp. And that's how we have control on the log when we're out there. Log rolling is one of the harder events to learn in timber sports because it does require so much like coordination and balance and basically constantly moving your feet and adjusting your body to stay balanced. So that's what I'm focused on. A lot of time is finding that center of the log and trying to match that with the center of my body. It does become a little flow state after a while. The better you get, the more you are kind of, you feel comfortable on the log, you're moving, you're reacting, and that's when you're kind of in line. And like I said, found that center on that log, and that's where, it is more of a flow state. And then as you're competing, you'll make adjustments on purpose to manipulate the log to beat your opponent. Like here, you're seeing me practice by myself, but of course in competition, there's 2 people on the log. So that's when a little bit more planning and decisions are made. Every movement you make is even as small as it is, has a big change in your balance. So it is a lot to do with foot placement, but you can kind of react and help yourself get back to the center of the log by like moving your body back or kicking your butt down. A lot of times, if you see us backpedaling, we're like almost looking like we're sitting in a chair to help keep that weight back over the log. But yeah, a lot of times it's just keeping, again, your body in line. So like even small movements of the shoulder adjust your body weight over that center line. So then you're fighting it back. So you're constantly trying to, I guess keep your body where it needs to be. My professional career in log rolling is very short, only because I've been log rolling since I was 16, but the professionals that I would compete against at the World Championships are incredible log rollers, and they've been rolling since they were about 4 years old. So to be competitive, you have to be training a lot. You have to be on the log a lot, and you have to get on there with another person and be able to know what that's like and be able to learn how to manipulate that log in a way to put you at an advantage to stay on the log longer. But there is a lot of things going on out there that it's hard to see, and even myself still kind of trying to wrap my head around how to do those as far as changing the direction at the right time to knock your opponent in the water. Those kind of decisions and that kind of being able to like think on your feet, literally, is a big component to being a successful log roller. It's one of my favorite things to do in Ketchikan this winter, especially. It's really peaceful. This lake is so beautiful, surrounded by all the trees and the mountains, and especially this winter when there was this, snow on the ground or ice on the lake. So it's a really, really peaceful and a pleasant experience for me, and then I also get to train. So I get to be active, but also I get to kind of be in a beautiful place. So yeah, I feel really grateful. Ketchikan is the first place I would say I call home since I left high school. I was born in Anchorage, Alaska, so it's cool to find myself back in Alaska after so many years. So it's actually a pretty special place for me. It's grew to be important to me outside of the Lumberjack show as well. This usually used to be the only reason I was here, but now I've connected with the community, created a lot of really good friendships around here, and now this place is home to me. This place is full of very like-minded people that I've loved to travel, love to be outside, love to be outdoors, love to be social, And so it's really easy if you put yourself out there to connect with a lot of cool people and a lot of artistic, talented people in this town. So it's really a unique place, in my opinion. I think it's like unlike any other place in the world. All right, the first step of this process for any timber sport event is to, once you have the blocks cut, you peel off all the bark to help keep our equipment sharper. You'd rather not cut through the bark because it'll dull the blades very quickly. So that's the first step. You don't really need much of a sharp one for the peeling process. We use either a throwing axe or what we call a rigging axe, which is an axe that we don't compete with. It's kind of an all-purpose kind of axe. This is a hybrid cottonwood that grows in Oregon, and we get it barged up. It's a fairly soft wood, and it's real consistent throughout the wood, allowing us to have mostly like even blocks throughout the season. Yeah, the best way to match two blocks to get the most even blocks is we cut blocks from the same tree that are like right next to each other. Because even if they come from the same tree, if one comes from the base of the tree and one comes from the top of the tree, that base of the tree is going to be a lot tougher block than the one at the top. So we try to get them away from the base of the tree, and if they're right next to each other, that's about the most even blocks you're going to have. All right, now we're ready to mount it into the stand. All right. So this right here is called a single buck saw. It's one of the most grueling events in timber sports. It's a modified old school peg and raker saw. This is about 6'3", and this is called a two cutter because there's two teeth on every cutting tooth. And these are about $2,500, made over in New Zealand. And there's only a few people in the world that can file them well enough for professional competition. The object of the single buck event is to cut one clean disc off the block as fast as you can. In most competitions, you get what's called a starting curve. So they'll come over here, and the ref, or the judge, excuse me, will measure out like a 10-inch curve. What I mean by that is a 10-inch cut in the log, and it's kind of a safety cut. There are competitions out there where you start with a fresh cut on top of the log, but most of them you'll start slightly in the wood like you see there. So the challenging part about this event is keeping this blade straight and running smoothly. It's so finicky, if you change the angle wrong, you can hang up the saw and cost you a lot of time in a race. And that's the single buck. So these are called rakers, and they come behind the cutting tooth and actually scoop that noodle, wood noodle, scoops it out behind the tooth and helps clear the way for the next tooth coming in. So it is a hard sport to get involved in because the access to the sport and the resources needed to train are hard to come by, and it's kind of a small world. So there's a couple different ways. Either you can grow up around it, you know, like I did, and got into it when I was young. Another way is a lot of people go to college, like a forestry school, and they have collegiate woodsman's teams. And that's how we do a lot of our recruiting here at the Lumberjack show. We recruit from collegiate woodsman's teams. So they don't do all the events, but they'll compete in chopping and sawing events. So when they come up here, they already know some of the events, and then we'll teach them the climbing and the rolling and stuff. But yeah, other than that, it's just like if it piques your interest, you know, go to some professional competitions, start talking to the competitors. Maybe you live near one, they can help you out, or you can spend some time with them, at least introducing some of the basic events to you to start off. You know, a lot of people, we start with the underhand chop. It's the one you can control the most, and then you move on to the other chopping. So yeah, just get involved, getting to know someone that knows the sport that can, you know, at least coach you through the first couple steps, and then eventually you can kind of take it on your own to train on your own, of course.
All right, after we peel the bark off the log, we set the block on the stand, but before we secure it, we actually read the block, which means that we look for where the knots are, where the hardwood is, where the softwood is, and we set it up to best suit what we think would be best to chop that, how we could do it most efficiently with avoiding knots or putting our harder wood on a certain part of the log. So that's the first thing I do when I get it into the stand before I secure it into place. And then we pound it in to secure it. Put a strap around it to keep these spikes into place. We call them dogs. Once the block is secure, then we mark out our lines to show us where we want the axe to go. The first move you make is you right about where your hands rest at your sides. That's where you want to start your first hit. So you make a mark there. Then we take the diameter of the block, which this is 12 inches. The face you're cutting is the same diameter as the block. Then you come to this side and you go up 2 inches from whatever this was. So that's 8.5. So I'm gonna come up 10.5. And another 12. And then what I like to do is I like to divide the block into fourths. So I like to quarter the block so I know the centers on all 4 sides. And then we mark out our actual cutting curve. The standing block chop is the premier chopping event at Timber Sports. What it does is it simulates cutting down a tree out in the forest. All the events in Timber Sports simulate a technique or skill they used to harvest timber back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So this is a simulation of cutting down a tree. And what we do is we cut halfway through on one side, and then we move to the back side to finish it off. We wear these shin guards because if the axe happens to glance on a down hit, the natural path of that would head right towards your shin. So this protects us from any accidents like that. So when we're chopping a standing block, we chop in a pattern, and that pattern is a far up hit, a near up hit, and those are what are called your drive hits. And then you come to your down hits, which are called your chip hits, and you go the reverse order, which is near, far, and that removes the wood, and you continue that pattern until you get to the center, and then you move to the back side. Unless you have to make adjustments because of knots or maybe a missed hit or something like that. You make adjustments throughout the block, but ideally you continue that pattern until you're in the center.
a lumberjack will do up to 4 shows a day. Yeah, sometimes up to like 20 shows a week. Sometimes is a heavy week, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, once the season starts, yeah, it's nonstop, and it keeps you in shape for sure. There's a few different reasons that I've been involved in the sport for 20 years. Like I said, not only the camaraderie, but I grew up being an athlete, and this allows me to be an athlete. You know, I'm 35 this year, and I'll be able to compete at least in the chopping and sawing events until I'm, you know, into my 60s, 70s. You know, not maybe at a high level, but there's some guys out there. I just saw a video the other day. A guy was chopping at 82 years old, and so you can still just be involved in the sport as long as you can pick up an axe and swing it, and that's special to me. And yeah, it's now it's just kind of in my blood, and I've put so much time and effort into it. It's, you know, kind of consumes me, and I'm okay with that though.